Well, good morning. Let's try this again. If you're on cast and you can't hear me, I apologize. Gotta unmute yourself. Gotta unmute your audio, your microphone, so that people can actually hear you. So if you're out there in the stream, thank you for jumping in and telling me that my microphone was muted. So you should be able to hear me now. Very excited to be here talking about AI, talking a little bit about what it means to be in the space of analytical AI and how that changes and compares to generative AI and what that means for pretty much everyone underneath the sun and how that's going to affect you a little bit, but also how that's going to be important to those that are around you. So, with that, I think we are having some minor technical issues with our. Oh no! All right, we're good. We're good with our closed captioning. Want to make sure that that's working nice. All right, closed captioning's good. Audio is good. With that, we're going to head on over to the screen share, but I wanted to wish you a happy day, whatever day you're watching this. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. If you're watching it on the weekends, thank you for coming in and watching on the weekends. And if you're chatting with us, feel free to throw a chat or comment in no matter where you are. Get your comments so we can always have an active conversation. With that, let's head on over to the screen share. So for those of you who don't know, my name is Robert Pichino, all around great guy, but futurist technologist, and here to help you understand emerging technology and why it's important to you and what it means for your future in your organization or you individually. With that, we're going to run through a little bit of AI versus ML versus, general AI or general intelligence, and then get into analytical versus generative AI. With that, let's talk about this first. So artificial intelligence, umbrella term. Okay, so that's our big concentric circle on the outside here. Machine learning is a layer below that. Large language models is a version of machine learning. And then there's neural nets and deep learning. Deep learning is the really interesting portion here, something to call out when we look at this model. Deep learning is a portion of the machine learning world that we don't fully understand. Okay, we don't understand every single aspect of it, and that's okay. It's a bit of a black box, but there is active measures to figure out how and why the computer is doing what it's doing, because we don't fully understand it to the nth degree. So when we think about artificial intelligence versus machine learning, AI is our umbrella term. ML is a segment underneath that, and it's really focused on the machine learning is really focused on using algorithms that are trained on data to provide feedback, all right, perform various tasks, whether it's generating content for generative AI or classifying content for analytical AI. Now, what's the big difference between that and something like iRobot, right? Everyone may have seen that movie, but it's basically a robot that has full intelligence of a human and is able to make decisions and feel remorse and have emotions. So with that, iRobot really is this illustrious, massive goal for some computer organizations out there, some AI organizations, to create this general intelligence. And general intelligence is the ability to act and interact with humans and fully get rid of the Turing test. So if you've never heard of the Turing test, it is a comparison of human and computer responses to see which one is actually the human, determined by a human. So if you asked questions to a human and a computer, could the computer fake it and make it sound like they were a human? So with that, general intelligence for artificial intelligence is many, many moons away. Not as many as we previously saw, and that's okay. But there is some general movement forward in this area because people want to understand and want to see what's actually out there when it comes to this. Now, AI and ML has a massive market cap. So this is from a couple months ago, but we're talking about, hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars. This is projected at 1.3 trillion in the next 5 years, give or take. So pretty massive shift in what the general AI market is, and this doesn't even include a lot of the projections when it comes to ChatGPT. So a lot of these numbers were previous to ChatGPT coming out. So it's one of those things to think about. But very, very high market value, very, very much on top of business and organizations' needs. One of the studies recently came out that 9 out of 10 businesses have already invested in AI as of 4 months ago, or 6 months ago, excuse me, and are looking to invest in it deeper. So it's pretty impressive from that regard. When we look at who is on the generative AI side, we see some big name leaders, and most organizations are in some way, shape, or form in the generative AI space at this point. So, and the reason for that is because, well, the market cap is there and the user adoption is there. So when we think about generative AI, it's a machine learning model that can generate new or original data, text, images, audio, and is basing that on its data set of text, images, and audio. So that's how generative AI is working. It's using that to pull and reference those and then create something that is novel and new, or at least slightly novel and new. There's a couple big generative AI portions, right? So we have text, we have music generation, image generation, and then there's this summarization and explanation aspect of it. It's really a subset of text generation, but I pulled it out specifically because that seems to be the primary use case that we're seeing across ChatGPT. Can you read this information and provide a summary, or can you generate an explanation related to X or Y? However, there is a lot of different ones out there. So when we look at our big players, Bard are obviously from Google. OpenAI is now part of, or partially owned by Microsoft, and OpenAI has two big examples, right, with ChatGPT and DALL-E. DALL-E is the visual generative AI, and ChatGPT is obviously the text one, and even Adobe into the fray. So when we look at generative text AI, it's quite impressive. So as of today, Google Bard can now code, which is interesting, and one of the differentiators that we had previously between Bard AI and ChatGPT. What's really nice is we're seeing Bard be used primarily for how people traditionally interact with Google and extending it beyond that interaction layer. So because that's slightly beyond that interaction layer, we see that there's some interesting ways that it's providing information. So it's not only giving it in this text prompt to summarize it, but it's also giving you bullet points and even giving you reference articles, which is what we were all anticipating when Bard came out, was that they would align to what the references were in the actual links here. Now, when we see that, we also can look at ChatGPT, where it's generating text-based conversational pieces and information on its neural network, and its machine learning system. So right here, we're looking at an After Effects expression to make the shape layer wiggle when a null object is within 50 pixels. So that's pretty interesting as well, and it's showing you what that After Effects code would look like. So these are text generative AI, two really good examples of that. When we move over to image generative AI like DALL-E, DALL-E is giving us references of visual images and then allowing you to type in text to visual imaging. The same with Adobe's Firefly. So here, where they're asking for a virtual hummingbird, I believe, that they put in, and they add in some different effects, whether it's the stars and even the background changes. On this one, we're getting a dog in a spacesuit. So pretty, they even went down to a Shiba Inu astronaut, right? So they're going to generate this, and that is DALL-E versus Adobe. Adobe is actually rolling this out and looking to expand how this impacts a slew of different layers and interactivity there, which is really, really interesting as well. So we even see generative AI when it comes to motion graphics. Motion graphics is a fantastic location for people to have, AI assist with the process of what they're doing. And the reason for that is because they can reduce the amount of time spent on replacing characters with 3D models. So on the left-hand side is Wonder Studio. Wonder Studio is a really nice tool that came out. It allows you to record a video and then dynamically replace it with a 3D character. Now, limitations, yes, there are obviously limitations. However, those major limitations right now is the number of 3D models that are available to input into the system. They've got some standard ones that you can use, but as they grow and build this platform to a larger user base, they'll obviously expand and upload your own character into that. But what we're seeing here is video understood by artificial intelligence / machine learning to create a skeletal structure, and then that skeletal structure is overlaid with a 3D model. This is what we get excited about when it comes to AI. It's a really interesting place to see. Humberto, yes, I completely agree. There's a much wider gap when it comes to adoption in the medical space, especially when it comes to non-FDA compliance. Very, very good point. If the FDA level of compliance is lower, we will see a much higher adoption. One of the fantastic examples of AI in the medical space is, I believe it was Bristol Myers Squibb. They built a AI for skin cancer tracking, taking a photo of a skin cancer and allowing the doctor to get almost immediate results if it is potentially skin cancer based on a photo. It was a really, really interesting app. So I completely agree with that point that there is some serious changes in diagnosis and even medical drug discovery, which is coming out as well. When we look at Matter Piece Studio here too, text to 3D animated character, right? Upload a character, just add text, and then it will automatically animate it for you, which is an interesting place as well to be, because now we're increasing that efficiency. So these generative AIs are massive and pretty much all across the board, whether it's pharmaceutical, all the way down to visual effects. Analytical AI has been around for significantly longer period of time. However, it is still being continuously edited and created. So we see OpenAI is in this space, Meta, Amazon, Apple, all of these players are in the analytical AI space. And what that basically saying is it understands what's actually happening and allows it to analyze that. So there's some good examples of this as always. So on the left-hand side here, Tesla, right? Computer vision is a fantastic understanding of analytical AI. In this case, we're seeing a ton of different bounding boxes for cars. These C's are different cars that are parked or stationary, and they are bounded by these yellow boxes here. We're even seeing the differentiation of the road as well as traffic lights, and this is all happening live on Tesla's internal computers, being read, understand, and then allowing for those automated driving patterns to happen. When we look at Apple launched their Room Plan API. And the Room Plan API was basically the ability to use the LiDAR sensor on the device and capture a room's floor, walls, windows, ceilings, and then various items in the room. So these bounding boxes are actually a couch, a table, an end table, 2 chairs, a TV, and then a hutch that the TV is on top of. This is actually the layout of my living room, if anyone wanted to know. But in short, the LiDAR-based AI will give you accurate dimensions of the space, but also allow you to understand what objects are in that space. So when we think about computer vision, it's a fantastic use case for analytical AI models to recognize objects, people, places, everything underneath the sun, from self-driving cars to decorating your own space. This doesn't stop there. Meta just recently released a fantastic computer vision AI. It's arguable that maybe this is not computer vision, but it's pretty darn close. I would put it underneath that umbrella. So Segment Anything is actually a Meta AI model or machine learning model that allows you to segment different parts of a photo with really, really strong accuracy. It'll actually segment any portion of that photo as well. So there's a lot of different applications in that space to this type of content, right? So I can click on this frog and then remove the snail so I just have the frog itself, or I can simply select and segment a jacket off of a model. When I think of computer vision from this aspect, this is going to change the game when it comes to how organizations look at creative, right? Photography, creative, as well as a bunch of others are going to be drastically changed from this. Now, there's two other big analytical AIs in natural language processing, speech recognition, that most people probably are familiar with at this point. Those are specifically talking to Siri, or a Siri-like assistant. Amazon has their own. Apple obviously has their own. There's a ton underneath the sun. But that natural language processing allows models to analyze text and speech, okay, meaning sentiment, as well as the tone, inflection, and information that's gathering, and provide a service revolving around it. So everyone at some point has probably done this, where they've asked Siri or Amazon Alexa what song is playing, and it's referred to that information. We've also seen this all the way down to asking what date, what time, setting a alarm. All of those are natural language processing. So what we have on the other side is speech recognition. Now, natural language processing comes in text as well as speech. So that is the parent term. Speech recognition is specifically when we're talking to it. So what's interesting is that we can do natural language processing of text and speech. So the speech is the Siri example. When we think of it as a text-based answer, one of the newer tools that came out recently is wearing a pair of glasses and looking at a menu, and a virtual assistant reading what's on that menu, so reading the text that's there, then providing candid feedback or feedback on what you should get to have for dinner. And the reason that happens is because it uses a speech recognition to ask the glasses, what should I have for dinner? And it will look through that list and say, hey, you should have this for dinner, and this is the reason why. Now, when we look at this, this is purely just generative text-to-speech and speech recognition, but it's also analyzing, creating a data set specific to what's on that menu. Now, if you enhance this data set and added your own preferences or your social media categories, you could say, hey, you should have the fish tacos because they're high in protein. You're looking to lose a couple pounds, and you've posted about fish tacos in the past. So this type of visual understanding or visual analysis of data compared to a personal data set is really where we're looking at the future of things come to light. I think that this type of experience is super interesting. This is actually an open source project as well from a group of students. And if you're interested in that, check out my LinkedIn. I posted about it, or my Twitter. It's also on there. So when we look at the difference between generative AI and analytical AI, the major options that you have is you have creativity, flexibility, and the ability to learn from limited data in generative AI because it's making a lot of assumptions. You can also tone up or tone down the truth factor, right, or the accuracy factor of what's actually being generated, so you can kind of play in that regard. When it comes to analytical AI, it's all about accuracy and speed and handling large amounts of data so that it becomes predictive in what it's doing, and that prediction is more accurate based on what you want. So if we're trying to figure out, what type of tree is in front of us, we're going to use analytical AI. But if then we want to tell a story about that tree to us and how Mary and Jim carved their initials into the bark of that tree, that's where generative AI would come into play. Similar but different, and ultimately a little bit focused on both sides of it. So that is a little bit about generative and analytical AI. went into some details. I appreciate you guys coming in and chatting with me and listening. If you haven't checked out the socials below, make sure you do so. I look forward to picking these back up. I apologize for being out a couple days last week. We were at some events and we got some highlights across the social media platforms about those, doing some speaking events as well. So with that, that's generative AI. That's analytical AI. That's the future of integrations and where we see things really going. So I hope that you enjoyed your time with us. I hope that this was impactful and meaningful. If it was, make sure you give it a comment. Make sure you share. I apologize if the stream is bad on any of the platforms, but we are always live on a bunch of different ones, from Twitch to Kick to YouTube to LinkedIn. So I appreciate you coming in. I appreciate you chatting with us, and I'll see you on the other side.